Princess Diana's health story. Grace, struggle, and the pursuit of wholeness. Princess Diana remains one of the most beloved and deeply respected figures of the modern era. Known for her compassion, candor, and vulnerability, Diana's life was a tapestry woven of both suffering and radiant hope. While she never published a health manual, her habits, struggles, and triumphs reveal a protocol for wellness that is as relevant now as ever. The art of surviving and even healing while living under the world's brightest spotlight. Part 1. On routines, self-compassion, and the quiet foundations of rest. For Princess Diana, the palace was often less a sanctuary and more a stage, its walls echoing with expectation, the press waiting just beyond the gates. In such a world, finding peace was not easy, yet Diana, perhaps more than any other modern royal, became a student of self-care, especially when it came to rest. Sleep for Diana was both a battleground and a balm. "I'd like to be a queen in people's hearts," she once said, "but I don't see myself being queen of this country." Beneath this humility was a longing for a different kind of safety, a place where she could lay down her armor and simply be. In her most candid interviews, Diana spoke about nights of anxiety and insomnia, when the pillow was the only thing that understood. She often found herself pacing palace floors or writing long, heartfelt letters to friends and confidants in the midnight hours, seeking connection in the quiet. But Diana also fought, gently and persistently, to reclaim the night as her own. She developed evening rituals that would soothe her into sleep. Friends recall her love of warm baths with scented oils, sometimes by candlelight, to wash away the day. She kept her bedroom a sanctuary, no television blaring, no endless distractions, preferring instead soft music or the pages of a cherished novel. One favorite was The Little Prince, whose lessons on love and loneliness spoke deeply to her. As Diana confided to journalist Andrew Morton, "Books were my escape, my way of making sense of the world." She learned to approach rest as an act of self-respect. On nights when worry threatened to unravel her, she practiced gentle breathing, sometimes counting backwards, sometimes reciting prayers she learned as a child. "Everyone needs to be valued," she told an interviewer. "Everyone has the potential to give something back if they're given the chance." In these private moments, Diana gave that chance to herself, granting permission to rest, to heal, to simply be. And on those especially restless nights, Diana would sometimes walk the palace gardens, letting the hush of the night air and the scent of roses calm her nerves. In her own words, "I found peace in nature, in the moonlight, and in the gentle rhythm of my footsteps." These solitary walks became a ritual, her way of returning to herself, of reminding her heart that it too deserved gentleness. Diana's struggles with sleep remind us that rest is not a luxury reserved for the fortunate. It is a necessity, and sometimes a hard-won victory. By prioritizing rest, however imperfectly, she modeled a kind of radical self-compassion. It was not always easy, nor was it always successful, but the effort itself was a declaration. "I am worthy of care." Her life urges us to see rest not as weakness, but as the birthplace of renewal. In a world that still celebrates exhaustion, Diana stands as a quiet rebel. She teaches us that tending to our own well-being is not selfish. It is, in her words, the first act of kindness. And in those small nightly rituals, drawing a warm bath, turning the final page of a book, pausing beneath the stars, she discovered again and again that healing often begins in the stillness we create for ourselves. Part 2. On nutrition, nourishment, and a new relationship with food. Princess Diana's relationship with food was complex, shaped as much by the public gaze as by her own search for comfort and healing. "I was always told I was too thin," she once reflected. "And then when I put on weight, I was told I was too fat." The pressure to embody an ideal, one determined by tabloids, tradition, and even the crown, left its mark. In her candid conversations with Andrew Morton, Diana spoke openly of her struggle with bulimia. You inflict it upon yourself because your self-esteem is at a low ebb. Yet, even in her darkest moments, Diana's journey with food was never only about suffering. It was also about resilience and recovery. Through therapy, friendship, and her own relentless honesty, she began to reshape her relationship with eating. She learned to approach meals not as battles to be won or lost, but as opportunities for nourishment, connection, and gradually, joy. Her table at Kensington Palace became a quieter place than the grand halls of royal banquets. Diana preferred simple, whole foods: poached chicken, fresh fish, crisp salads, seasonal fruits, and steamed vegetables often prepared with the help of her beloved chef, Darren McGrady. She'd have a baked potato, sometimes with a little cottage cheese, and always a big bowl of salad, McGrady recalls. It wasn't about dieting, it was about feeling good. Diana also loved to cook for her sons, William and Harry, inviting them into the kitchen to stir pancake batter or chop fruit. These ordinary acts became extraordinary memories. But Diana's path to peace with food was not linear. She faced relapses, setbacks, and days of doubt. Yet she persisted. She worked with nutritionists and therapists who helped her see eating as an act of kindness to herself, rather than a source of shame or anxiety. I want my boys to grow up understanding that food is something to be enjoyed, not feared, she told a close friend. Diana's health protocol reminds us that nourishment is a practice, not a finish line. It is the daily act of asking, does this meal serve my body and spirit? Am I honoring my hunger, my history, and my hope for something better? She teaches us that food is more than fuel or ornament. It is a source of healing, of comfort, and above all, of self-acceptance. In her journey from struggle to self-care, Diana invites us to eat with presence, gratitude, and a willingness to forgive ourselves. You can't comfort the world if you're starving yourself, she once confided. Be gentle, always, starting with your own heart. In every humble meal shared with her sons, in every quiet dinner prepared for herself, Diana reclaimed not just her health, but her humanity. Part 3. On movement, expression, and the healing power of physical activity. For Princess Diana, movement was never just about fitness. It was freedom, therapy, and joy. In a world where so much was scripted, rehearsed, and rigid, physical activity was the place she could be most herself. Spontaneous, alive, unburdened by protocol. From childhood, Diana loved dance. Ballet was her earliest passion, a dream she once hoped would become a career. I absolutely adore dancing, she said. It's a wonderful release, a way to express what you can't always say. Though she later had to set aside her hopes of the stage, she never gave up the joy of movement. Diana would practice ballet in private studios, losing herself in music and motion, finding in dance a language for all she struggled to say. This love of movement stayed with her through the turbulence of royal life. She took up swimming, tennis, cycling, and walking, sometimes in the gardens of Kensington Palace, sometimes along the windswept beaches of Norfolk, and often simply hand in hand with William and Harry. She encouraged us to be outside, to run, to get muddy, to just be children, Prince William once remembered. That's how she was, always wanting us to feel free. Diana's approach to exercise was a blend of discipline and play. She worked out with personal trainers, often early in the morning before the day's demands began. She was determined, said her trainer Caroline Brown. She wanted to be strong, not just slim. Diana found particular solace in swimming, often spending quiet hours doing laps, letting the water calm her mind and body. But movement for Diana was about more than appearance or even health. It was about healing from trauma, anxiety, and loneliness. If I don't move, I feel stuck, she confided. Physical activity became her medicine for the emotional storms she faced, a way to shake off sadness, anxiety, and the weight of public life. Friends would often find her walking alone through the palace grounds, head bent in thought, sometimes stopping to touch the flowers or to watch the swans on the pond. These quiet, private moments were essential for her well-being. Dance, in particular, remained her secret joy. On stage at the Royal Opera House, Diana once surprised Prince Charles by performing a duet with Wayne Sleep, a bold, joyful gesture of independence and delight. "For a few minutes I felt entirely myself," she later said. "Alive, brave, happy." Diana's protocol teaches us that movement is not punishment, but celebration. It is the act of reclaiming the body as a source of joy, not judgment. Whether through dance, sport, or simply walking, she invites us to move, not to impress, but to express, to heal, to connect, and to remember the simple happiness of being alive. She reminds us, in her own words, "Hugs can do great amounts of good, especially for children." Her embrace of movement, of her own body, and of those she loved, was ultimately her way of giving and receiving care. Let us honor that lesson, making space each day to move not out of duty, but out of gratitude for the bodies and the lives we inhabit. Part 4. On mental health, openness, and the strength to keep going. Princess Diana changed the world's conversation about mental health simply by being honest. At a time when almost nobody talked about feeling anxious or depressed, especially in royal circles, Diana bravely shared her story. She showed us that even people who seem to have it all can feel lost, sad, or overwhelmed sometimes, and that it's okay to ask for help. From the outside, Diana was the people's princess, famous, glamorous, and always in the spotlight. But inside, she faced real pain. Early in her marriage and royal life, she often felt isolated and misunderstood. "I was crying out for help, but giving the wrong signals," Diana admitted in a famous interview. She talked openly about her struggles with depression and bulimia, a type of eating disorder that's fueled by stress and low self-esteem. "You inflict it upon yourself because your self-worth is at a low ebb," she explained. These honest words connected with millions who were going through similar things, but felt they had to keep it secret. Diana wasn't afraid to show her emotions. "I wear my heart on my sleeve," she once said, "but that's the only way I know how to be." Some people found this shocking, or even criticized her, but for many others, it was a huge relief. They realized they weren't alone in how they felt. But Diana didn't just talk about her struggles. She took real steps to feel better. She started seeing therapists and counselors, even though it was rare for someone in her position to do so. She joined support groups, wrote in her diary almost every day, and made time for quiet reflection. "You see, I am trying to do my best," she once wrote in a letter to a friend. "But sometimes the weight of it all seems too much. Still, I get up each day and try again." When things felt especially heavy, Diana would often slip outside, finding peace in the palace gardens, sitting on a bench, or walking among the flowers. Nature, even in the middle of London, was a safe place where she could breathe and just be herself. Another thing that helped Diana was reaching out to others. She poured her compassion into charity work, visiting hospitals and hospices, holding hands with patients who were often shunned by society. She was famous for hugging people with AIDS at a time when there was a lot of fear and misunderstanding about the disease. Her kindness was never just for the cameras. It came from her own experience with suffering and her deep desire to help. Diana's approach to mental health wasn't perfect. There were good days and bad days, breakthroughs and setbacks. She would sometimes fall back into old habits or feel overwhelmed again. But what made her remarkable was that she didn't give up. She kept working on herself, kept talking, and kept reaching out for support. She wanted to set a new example for her sons, William and Harry, showing them that it's okay to be vulnerable and to ask for help. Over time, Diana's honesty started to change how people all over the world thought about mental health. She made it less taboo to talk about feelings, therapy, or mental struggles. She showed that being brave doesn't mean never hurting. It means admitting when you do and taking steps to heal. Diana's own words say it best. Helping people in need is a good and essential part of my life, a kind of destiny. She also helped others by listening, truly listening to their stories. People felt safe with her because she was so open about her own journey. One hospital worker recalled, "She looked into your eyes as if you were the only person in the world." Diana taught us that sometimes the best gift you can give is to really hear someone, to let them know they matter. In the end, Diana's legacy is about more than just her beauty, style, or even her charity work. It's about her strength in being real, in talking about her mental health, and in helping others feel less alone. She reminds us that it's okay not to be okay, and that with honesty, help, and hope, things can get better. That's a lesson as powerful today as it was in her own time. Part 5. On joy, service, and living with purpose. Princess Diana's life was filled with challenges, but she never stopped searching for joy, meaning, and ways to give back. Even when she was struggling herself, Diana always believed in the importance of helping others and making life a little brighter, both for her own family and for people she'd never met. One of Diana's greatest joys was being a mother. She often said that her happiest moments were spent with her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. "I live for my sons," she told a friend. Diana made sure that, despite their royal status, her boys would know what it felt like to be truly loved. She took them to theme parks, let them eat fast food, and encouraged them to play in the mud just like any other kids. These weren't just escapes from royal life, they were moments of real connection and laughter. "Family is the most important thing in the world," Diana often said, and she meant it. But Diana's sense of purpose didn't stop at home. She poured her heart into helping others, finding meaning in service and kindness. She became known for her hands-on approach to charity work. Unlike many public figures, she didn't just show up for photos. She rolled up her sleeves and got involved. Diana visited children in hospitals, sat with the homeless, and walked through fields of landmines to raise awareness about their dangers. "Nothing brings me more happiness than trying to help the most vulnerable people in society," she said. Diana's kindness was often simple, but it meant the world to those she touched. She would hold hands with people others avoided, give hugs to those who felt forgotten, and write personal notes to families in pain. A nurse at the London hospital once recalled, "Diana didn't just come to visit, she came to listen." Her belief in the power of human connection was clear. Carry out a random act of kindness, with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you. Despite all the struggles in her own life, Diana found ways to create joy, both for herself and others. She loved music, dancing, and being outdoors. Friends remember her singing along to pop songs in the car and laughing until she cried during movie nights. She filled her home with fresh flowers, often arranging them herself as a way to relax. Diana also believed in the power of small pleasures and self-care. She wasn't afraid to treat herself to a new dress or a quiet afternoon with friends. She understood that moments of happiness could help her face the challenges ahead. "Hugs can do great amounts of good, especially for children," she said, but she knew they could help grown-ups too. By living this way, Diana showed the world that happiness and meaning don't have to be found in grand gestures. They are in the everyday choices we make, to be present, to show kindness, and to look for beauty wherever we can. Even when life was hard, she found ways to laugh, to give, and to make a difference. "Wherever I see suffering, that is where I want to be, doing what I can," she said. Diana's health protocol was really a protocol for living. Care for yourself and others, seek joy even in small moments, and use your life to make the world better. She taught us that purpose isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, compassionate, and willing to show up, day after day. Her story reminds us that no matter what we're going through, we can still choose to love, to help, and to find moments of happiness. That's a legacy that lasts far beyond any royal title, a lesson in humanity, hope, and heart. As you walk your own path, caring for your health, your heart, and your community, remember Diana's example. Rest when you need it. Nourish yourself kindly. Move with purpose and joy. Reach out for help, and never underestimate the impact of a simple act of kindness. Thank you for exploring Princess Diana's wisdom with me. For more stories about health, humanity, and the art of living well, stay tuned, and remember, your story, like Diana's, can shine a light for others too.